All right, good afternoon. Welcome to Big Data Meets Digital Advertising. My name is Brian Donaldson. I work at Undertone. It's my pleasure to introduce Laura Teggemeier, who is the VP of Data Strategy and, more importantly, my boss. We are going to take you through our journey of how we have implemented our solution to get information to our customers, our internal customers, quicker, and some of the lessons that we've learned. So with that, I'm going to let Laura.
There you go. All right. Thanks, Brian. Happy Wednesday, everybody. How was lunch? Good? Everyone is very food coma sleepy now? Awesome. So my name is Laura Teggemeier. I am the VP of Data Strategy at Undertone. I'm just the setup girl. I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what we do at Undertone, because digital advertising is not the most well-known or well-loved industry. You automatically hate us because we're responsible for ads on the internet. Boo. Except if you think about it, there really is no internet without ads, because it's all ad-supported, and we like the internet, so not quite as lame. And one of the things we're really trying to do, particularly with data, is make the advertising experience a lot better and a lot more relevant to consumers. So, marketing is very specific about the slides that we can show. So Undertone is a digital ad network. We'll talk a little bit about exactly what that means. We buy inventory from like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal in bulk. They sell some of it direct, but they have a lot of leftover. And if they had to talk to every Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, and everybody directly, they would have to have huge sales forces. So they use us. We buy it in bulk, and then we resell it to advertising agencies and advertisers in bulk again on a nice arbitrage model. Everything in advertising is the arbitrage model. So that's what we do. There's not that many of us around anymore because a lot of advertising has gone a little bit more programmatic than it used to be. But why is advertising a big deal? You probably don't know it, but this is a great example. You see 7,000 advertising messages per day. How many of those do you actually remember? A very, very small percentage. And now, of course, because of smartphones, tablets, PCs, work computers, it's going to be watches, it's going to be wearables. The average person has 3.3 devices, and trying to tie all those together. Did you see the message here, then there? How do we get that all together? And then the most important part is that we have an attention span of about 8 seconds. The good news is you've all stopped listening to me already, so I'm good. So what Undertone does, we do buy this inventory, and that's not really a long-going business model because the inventory becomes commodity. Advertisers are always looking for the next thing that no one's ever done before. I want the new experience. And so that's actually what we did. We invented our own proprietary units that publishers can then monetize their sort of existing inventory. We've built this nifty little framework, so just a regular ad space. We can put 1 million different formats with 1 million different features inside that same space, and they can sell it for a lot more money because they're very dynamic, interactive homepage takeovers, which you probably don't love. But it's kind of what we do. We work on the premium brand safe inventory. A large portion of what we use Tableau for right now is fraud detection. So unfortunately, digital advertising is ripe with fraud. And it's kind of a game of whack-a-mole. So because it's all happening on the internet, because it's going programmatic, these little bots are out there, and every time we identify one, they're like, that's fine, we're done with that one. We'll just make a new one that works like this. And so it's a continuous game of whack-a-mole, trying to track down and figure out, what is a real person actually viewing an ad and actually clicking on an ad. Because this is a multi-billion-dollar business, advertising. There's lots of money to be made, and lots of folks will take advantage. One of the things that we did to differentiate ourselves in the last couple of years is cross-screen delivery, to have the same ad unit. And it used to be a lot of folks have one for desktop, one for mobile, and one for tablet. And then you have to try and tie all that usage back together. We can have that single ad unit. It has a very different experience depending on your screen, but it's a single unit, so we can track it all consistently to give folks the full story. And this is kind of interesting. So my areas of responsibility at Undertone are kind of vast. Being a VP of Data Strategy, it's my job to make sure everybody's using the right math, doing things consistently. I have an engineering organization that's built our technology stack, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I have a data science team, and then I also have a research and insights team. And they go out and do tons of syndicated research, but we also do our own primary research. And one of the things that we've found, this is a recent study that we just did, actually about 2 months ago, what are folks looking for in their advertising? 7,000 messages a day, that web page, those bazillion banners that you never see. Clearly, we want them to be faster. I think that's great, mobile phones. We don't like to leave where we're at. We don't like to be interrupted and have to go someplace else. Something that's new, interesting, engaging. You'll hear that word a lot. And the option to explore the product or service right here, again, without having to leave and disrupt your experience. And so that's what we sort of target with our high-impact formats. So anyway, this is a Tableau conference. I think that's enough about digital advertising. There might be some questions later. We'll take those at the end. But Tableau. How did Tableau become something that we did? This is exactly a slide that I presented to my executive leadership on my first week working at Undertone. Why do we need to change from what we had? And we'll give you some nice before and afters that will make that readily apparent. But we need to improve our decision making. We had it's pretty common, lots of flat Excel spreadsheets, people, filters, trying to comb through that. We wanted a much higher granularity of data so we could make more intelligent decisions. We work with 85 different third parties who all have a little bit of data to give us. So how do we put that all together? And we wanted a much more flexible infrastructure because the digital advertising landscape is changing dramatically, and we just couldn't afford to take 12 months to make changes. Wait, it changed itself. That's cool. And what that was going to get us to significantly speed up our reporting development. So being an ad network, we work with lots of customers. They all want the customized experience. Building customized experiences is not a very profit-making business, but having something like Tableau, where they can ask for a few simple changes, someone can walk back to their desktop, make those changes, and publish them out to the server is really helpful. We wanted to be able to look at our audience. So who are you? Who's on our ad network? What do we know about you? Are you female? Are you a mom? Are you a CEO? What's your income? What are your interests? Are you shopping for a car? There's tons of information out there. And how do we determine what's the right ad to put in front of you at the right time so it's relevant, helpful, and it's kind of a win-win for both you and the advertiser. We've also taken on consolidating our financial and operational reporting. We don't get paid. We get paid. Everything we do is on how many ads we deliver or how much time people spent with them. So there's just a huge crossover from the billions of ads that we deliver to how do we pay our salespeople commissions, how do we pay publishers, how do we pay third parties, and then this notion of programmatic, which we won't talk a ton about. So what we decided on, or I decided on, was to replace our whole back end, move it all to Amazon Web Services. Yay. Do big data processing because we have huge logs in Hadoop, MapReduce, a lot of pig, and then put all that aggregate data in Redshift and put Tableau on top of it. And weirdly enough, it saved us a ton of money. So big data, I actually call this baby big data. If you were over watching the EA thing right before this, they're processing billions of records per hour. It takes us about a month to get a billion records, so yay. But these are just some of the stats. I won't go over them. We talked a little bit about our technology stack and so we get these log files. They get processed every 10 minutes or every hour or at the end of every day. And so we're constantly updating so users can really see in nearly real time how their ad campaigns are performing. Again, this is a slide from my first week to my executive. This is a very simplistic view of architecture. We can get real nerdy and complicated afterwards if you want to. But to just give you kind of a sense of, so we have our own ad logs. We have all of those 85 third parties who have some little bit of data that we have to try and figure out how to join it up. Workflow is our internal tool that we use to build, publish, and manage an advertising campaign. We have Salesforce, as everybody does, to manage all of our customers. And then Great Plains is Microsoft's super awesome financial software. But how, sorry. How do you put that, putting that all together? You want to, at least I want to, everybody should want to. Data should only live in one place. There's only one source of truth. The old days, you made lots of replications, copies, extracts, modifications. It's here, it's there, who has the latest. You have to spend all this time keeping track of who's most important. So one of the great things about Tableau is we can leave the data exactly where it is and just put it together for the user. We don't actually have to move, transform, and do all that, and I'm super, super excited for 2016 and some of the features with having the multiple data sources and applying filters and things like that. So that's kind of, and what we've done, so we use Tableau Server. Some of our folks who don't need to manage campaigns just log into Tableau Server directly, but most of the people in our company are in our internal tool. It's called Workflow, all day, every day, and so it's really great as they're just in that tool and they press a button and whoop, there's Tableau. They don't have to log out. We pass parameters from the tool, so the report's already showing them exactly what they wanted to see. And here we go. So the purpose of this presentation, so that was our plan. That was what we were going to do. Those are slides. That was my first week. And we hired a consulting company who I had actually worked with in the past. I worked at TiVo doing audience research and measurement, second by second, who fast forwards ads, who doesn't. And this company had been really great in the business intelligence space, but both Redshift and Tableau were pretty unknown to them. And so what we're going to kind of talk about today, so we had these great ideas. We were pretty sure we could do this, and we really struggled with our vendor a little bit in terms of what we wanted to do on an enterprise scale and people who were using Tableau desktop on top of spreadsheets, which is a great thing and an amazing thing, and one of the things Tableau does really well. But we wanted to take that a little bit to the next level and being able to push this out. We have 320 some odd people at our company. Every single one of those people today accesses Tableau in some form or another. And how do you do that on the scale that we needed to do? And Kyle will even know this question. For a while there, we weren't sure you could have multiple data sources on just one single dashboard, but you can, which is great. And so I think I'll turn it over to Brian to kind of walk you through where we started, what happened, what we learned, and where we ended up today, because I think it's a little bit like a great romance novel. We met, we fell in love, then something tragic happened. We thought our life was over, but then, yay, at the end of the novel, we all got back together and everyone's very happy. Ta-da! So I'll leave it to Brian. Thank you, guys.
A quick question. How many are here from, say, an IT or tech background? So I know we understand the audience. Okay, how many are here for the business side? Understanding reporting. Okay, good mix, 50-50. Good.
There you go.
Very good. So where we started, we have the system, as Laura indicated. It's called Workflow, and within Workflow we have insights reporting. You can see this is the current user or the user interface. They could go in and download reports. Now, a couple highlights I want to point out here. When you look under the Choose Reports, you see 4 versions of the same title. Which one should they use? You'll note there are probably about 10 or so reports available right there. When we aggregate them all together, there are over 600 reports within the Insights reporting tool. It's one of those, what information are you really looking for, and how are you, hey, did it again. How are you getting the information you need to make actionable decisions? How are campaigns running? This tool has worked. I don't want to make any poor statements. It worked for our company, but for where we want to go to the next level, it really didn't help out a lot. The output, I've already been kind of giving it away, would be Excel sheets. And if you look up here, there's a lot of zeros on that sheet. How do you make decisions from that? It makes sense to somebody, but there's a better way. So here was our first attempt. And as Laura said, we engaged with a consultant, and we asked them to help us put our big data with Tableau. And this is the kind of the iterations we got. And we started to realize there were a couple challenges, that you can't put 2 data sources on the same page. Well, I think you can. You can't put more than 1 visualization on the same page. And I think you can, actually. So we started to see a little bit of a disconnect in the capability. When we looked at this, it was like it's usable, but it's really not providing the use that our users want to be able to get the information out. And I see some heads nodding here like, yeah, you've seen this before, you've heard this story. It really did not meet our users' needs. What went wrong? It wasn't scalable. It was an inflexible architecture, trying to get all of the data that we were looking for into one location did not work. It was slow to develop. The data models weren't really, I'll use the word joined together, not joined as in the technical term, but able to interact with each other. And we also had poorly performing dashboards. The retrieval to go get the data took an inordinate amount of time. The Excel sheets could be downloaded generally within 5 to 10 seconds. Sometimes if it was a big report, it would take a minute or so, but that was an exception. Unfortunately, some of our dashboards would take a minute to download, and we all know what happens when we see the spinning wheel of death for a minute. That was one of our key elements. How do we make this work faster? It clearly led to a suboptimal user performance. We had a lot of frustrated folks. And what did they do? They wanted to do their custom analysis instead of leveraging the dashboards we built. So I'm going to ask Laura to walk through some of it. We said, okay, let's try this again. What can we do? And we'll talk a little bit more about the key learnings, but we decided that maybe a different partner was in order. And so we went out and asked Slalom, and we were very happy to have Kyle here, who helped us through this, say, please help us understand what options might exist. I'm going to ask Laura to walk us through the next steps here.
So I think I can't say no, I'm not on. What if I'm up here? Am I on now? Hello? Anybody? You can hear me? Okay. So Slalom. So we were working with a partner that I had worked with for 6 years before. They were an outstanding partner, but they did not have domain expertise in the technology, and they really struggled. And our previous VP of engineering, I might have gone to his office and thrown a teeny tiny hissy fit of, please stop telling me we can't do these things. I believe these things are possible. I'm really comfortable with our technology selection. I think we need to talk to somebody different. And he was pretty uncomfortable with the Tableau technology decision. He was pretty sure nothing that I wanted to do could be done in Tableau. So we got Kyle and Slalom, and they came in, and these are actually directly out of the decks that they did for us. How do we go from this thing that we have that is no better or no worse than the thing we had before? It's just not getting it done. And some really specific, this gets super nerdy, but how did we set up our data connections? We were doing lots of custom data connections, and instead we could have been using, joins. We had built, because it's really creepy that it keeps doing that. There's like a person, or I don't know. We had really built our table structure incorrectly because of perceived limitations in Tableau. Tableau is awesome. Have your regular happy star schema, and Tableau will work wonderfully. You don't have to do anything specific to your back-end data architecture to have Tableau perform. And so that's all we had to do. Using best practices, I think Tableau obviously has an amazing user community. There is information out there. They have so much great documentation that we had just not used. So just all following, like seriously, a little best practices document, like let's do that, let's do that, let's do that, let's do that. Everything got faster. We did also manage to find out we had a little problem with our VPN and our local network. We discovered that as part of the great testing they did for us. How we set up our server. Sadly, had we done just the default installation, we'd probably been okay. But somebody thought they were getting cute and went in and made some really bad choices. And then we did get incredibly lucky with Tableau 9. So we are on a Redshift backend. Prior to Tableau 9, Tableau executed its queries against Redshift in a serial manner, which means if you had 5 queries, first one has to go, then you have to wait for that one to finish before the next one. Tableau 9 did give us parallel query execution, which just made us seem like we were magic. So what do we do? Really basic best practices stuff. I think this, there are a lot of folks, I've actually spoken to a lot of folks. They're like, what are you talking on? I was like, Tableau with big data. They're like, Tableau can't do big data. I'm like, actually it can. And there's a lot of misconceptions, and you don't have to do anything. A full fact dimension model, star schema, Snowflake, however you want to do it, it works great. Really spending some time looking for us distribution keys is a Redshift thing. Redshift is an amazing database. I can't undersell that one either. If you're looking for a very performant, very cost-effective database, Redshift is your guy. But you do have to spend a little bit of time to figure out it's a horizontally scaled database, and where you put the data and how you're going to join it together really matters. That's the distribution key. Again, integers for keys, that's just standard database practice. There is one network driver that's better than another. Use that one. And then we also, because we are dealing with billions of records, we do have some high volume jobs that are updating our database. We were super cutely doing those throughout the business day while users were trying to access the database. We just moved those to the nighttime when everybody was sleeping, and everybody got really happy. And these are the kind of things, I won't go over these forever and ever, but again, these best practices, your primary parameters, your case statements, looking at top-end filters, using the quick filters and parameters to get those kind of performance improvements. Evan, who was our Tableau guy, literally in a week, and he came in and increased our performance by 20%. Again, with the SQL joins, denormalized, some stats there for you. I don't know how nerdy you want me to get. And this is, again, the custom SQL connections were actually a real challenge for us. So if you are in a large enterprise environment, I definitely recommend sort of testing different ways. One of the things that we've standardized, so Redshift supports views. Redshift is an incredibly performant database, particularly for large. We want Redshift doing all the work. We want Tableau doing nothing because we are doing with heavy volume. So we utilize views and things like that, which makes sure all the processing is happening on Redshift, and Tableau really only has to render the visualizations of the final summarized data. So yeah, our expectation was we could get about 20% faster. We ended up getting about 40% faster. So instead of sitting and watching the Wheel of Death for a minute, hey, they only had to wait 30 seconds, and actually most of our reports come up in just a handful of seconds, which when you're querying against many terabytes of data live with 300 active users, we call that pretty much a win. So, take one did not go well. Partner, Slalom, amazing. Having someone who's really, they talk about them, right? The Tableau Jedis.
Yes.
The Zen Masters, all of the, there really isn't anything. We had a long list of this can't be done in Tableau. They came in and everything we wanted, plus stuff we didn't even know we ever wanted, is now working in Tableau the way we want. And Brian's going to run you through a little bit of before and after, and then he's brave doing a live demo.
So you saw the original, which was Excel reports. And we had our initial consultant help us develop some visualizations. And then we asked for help from Slalom to do a second iteration, if you will. So the original is Excel, so we'll forget that. I'm going to show you what I called before, which was step one or try one, and then step two, which is what we're using right now. So on a day-to-day basis, we deliver ads for clients. We need to know how many ads have we delivered, how well are they performing, are they being clicked on, are they being viewed, okay?
Oh.
Hey, it did it again. It's giving away the story. That's not fair. So this was the original. It took a lot to come up with two charts. The CTR is click-through rate, so how many times is an impression given, how many times is it clicked on. Number of clicks divided by number of impressions equals CTR. You can see that we track a lot of information. The line item to us, we will deliver a campaign, which is an insertion order. A line item is the parts of the insertion order. And they can change over time. If a campaign is starting on January and ends in June, we may actually run 5 different or 6 different ad units, one each month, as we get better and better in understanding what's resonating with the customers. But each is a separate line item. But they're all the same product. So the far left shows you the individual products when they were run on a time frame. The chart on the right shows, collectively, this is all the same ad unit aggregated together over the entire time. This took a minute and a half to get on the screen. Let's try this again. This takes 20 seconds on a bad day. It is the same information. It does incorporate the changes that Slalom engineered with us, both on the front end and on the back end. We already talked about the back end processing. Laura gave away one of our great Tableau consultants from Slalom. Evan Kepner was one of the best guys I ever got the opportunity to work with. We could sit next to each other and iterate quickly, and I will show you, the demonstration will show you the result of that iteration. But this is how we came up with this. We learned that certain things don't perform well on a dashboard, so don't put them there. We learned that trying to create a table in a Tableau isn't necessarily the best thing. I'm not saying don't do it, but don't put it on the same thing as the main visualization. Put it in what we call the Details tab, which we have created for the ability for users to basically create their own pivot tables and then download them to Excel. This resonated. It also looks far better. There is that wow factor. Our client services teams can take this, capture the image, place it right in a PowerPoint slide. Remember, way back a long time ago, they had to go through the Excel process, download everything, analyze it, make the charts, put it in a PowerPoint slide. It's right there. And if they need to make adjustments with the filters, they make the adjustments with the filters, customize it as they need it. As Laura said, that's what they are looking for. It's ready to go. This sped up a lot of time in terms of the turnaround time that our clients are looking for. How are we doing today? How are we doing today? It allows us to get to that answer much quicker. On the flip side, we buy inventory from publishers. Laura mentioned a couple, the New York Times, the Washington Post. We're out here in Las Vegas, so the local papers, the local news networks, we will buy the inventory from them and then sell it for our customers. But we need to track how much money we are going to owe our publishers. Same type of information, but it doesn't resonate. It's hard to understand what's going on. The data is there, but it's hard to truly appreciate how the change was from this year versus last year for one publisher or literally the thousands of publishers we work with on a day-to-day basis. And we need to know it over different time periods. So our genius from Slalom came up with this. It's the same data. I can tell right away in the lower left corner. If it's orange, that means last year was higher. If it's green, this year is higher. I know right away how we're doing. Previous dashboard took approximately a minute 15 to load. This loads in 15 seconds. It's quick. We do quarterly business reviews with our publishers. We are able to show them this information right away. It saves our analysts a considerable amount of time of having to download 1, 2, 4 Excel reports, create a PowerPoint slide or slides, and deliver it out. This is ready to go every day they walk in. One thing I can't demonstrate, but this is a cool little tip that we credit Evan for. So you'll note in the upper right corner there is no undertone icon. Here there is. What we have put in there is when you hover over it, it will tell you what the dashboard is designed to do. And as we develop more and more tools, it will also allow for the link to how to be not quite the Jedi Master in Tableau, but how to be skilled in Tableau to manipulate the dashboards as required. We all know that moving from Excel to Tableau is a bit of a challenge in understanding, okay, if I just want to keep, exclude, if I need to highlight the filter, click on it to show other what's going on for this specific environment. All that capability is in there, but it's really hard to train sometimes. And when we've got 300 people that are using Tableau, it's hard to get them all at once. So we've developed a suite of how-tos that are range between 4 to 7 pages with pictures on how to use it. But the icon, hey, did it again. But the icon up there is designed to give folks a sense of where to go and get that user help so they can be a little more self-service. Okay, we talked a little bit about fraud guarantee. We guarantee to our clients that their ads will appear that went to people, not to bots. So we monitor fraud. Again, we gave the opportunity, metric 1 was a lot of metrics, 5 or 6. Metric 2 was another 5 or 6. We thought it was a great idea to give the ability to map 2 against each other. It seemed to make sense. The design on this one was good, but it was a little not as responsive as we wanted, but it also became confusing. Versus, okay, you see the green. The green equals the orange divided by the dark gray. It's immediately understood, and at the bottom here you can see the green rate, the orange, and the gray. This sped up the response time. This design improved from about 45-second load to a 10-second load. But it also becomes crisp and clear what the message is. One thing we did learn from our Tableau dashboard development is what is the core question we are trying to answer? Answer that question. Okay? Provide some other nuggets, but make sure you understand why the dashboard was developed. This one is quick and easy for folks to understand what's going on. Fraud rate, we want it to be as low as possible. And it's easy to do the sorting for our publishers. Some publishers have an inordinately high suspicious impression rate. It seems to be, in this case, this is an example, it's 50%. But you look right away and you see the number of suspicious impressions over the number of impressions. You know right away it's really, really small, comparatively speaking. It's not worthwhile. We talk about insights in the company. And Laura's got a great comment. Look for the large green bar. See if that's the insight. Because in this case, it's not. It's the bar over here that's got the most suspicious impressions. That's the one I have to worry about. It allows us to do that quickly. We didn't have that capability with the Excel files. Or we did. It just took a long time to get to this level of information. Okay, and this is my favorite one. So all the dashboards I've shown you to date, or so far, involve the back-end processing improvements and front-end design improvements as well. This one's a little different. I told you that we'd like to monitor suspicious impressions. We want to make sure that our network is what we call clean. That if we find a publisher has got a lot of fraudulent traffic, we wanted to understand if this is a one-time issue or if this is a repeated pattern that needs to be addressed. And if it is a repeated pattern that needs to be addressed, it includes discussions with the publisher and potential removal. And this is something we monitor day to day, sometimes more, I won't say hour to hour, but it's a frequent thing we care about. We need to make sure that our network is clean, that our clients, their ads, are going to people. We built this dashboard. It's designed to measure what the suspicious impression amount is on a day-to-day basis, or for the time period that you're choosing. The problem is, this one took even longer to load. Remember, I said this is not a back-end problem. We are getting this actually from 3 different sources that go into or processed by Tableau and then displayed on the screen. It also doesn't really have that wow factor. I've got 2 charts. I got 1 chart, 1 visualization. So I asked Evan, and when I asked Evan, it was kind of an off-the-hand conversation. I said, I need a favor. Please take a look at this because it is taking forever to load this spreadsheet, this dashboard. It's minute 30, sometimes 2 minutes on a bad day. Can you please? I know you're working on other things. Can you, when you need a break, take a look at this? He said, sure, no problems.
It did it again. But it's
cool.
Good. Hey, Brian, stop spending so much time on the bad ones. Show the good ones. Talk about the good ones.
I gotta get this set up. So this is what we developed. Okay, the load times were incredible. Okay, we showed this to the customer, our internal client, the folks who are monitoring our network. You talk about the wow factor. I can't say the words that were uttered out of folks' mouth because they're inappropriate for the language right now. But it was amazing. I also, an executive had left to go on to bigger and better things, and somebody said, man, I wish he could see this now. It was incredible. They understood it. They got it right away. This is the wow factor that they were looking for. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the scary part. I didn't change any data. All I did was have a skilled consultant make it look right and align Tableau to process the data like it should be. That's what I got. And that, is what we use today, and that is one of the most well-respected dashboards in our company. It went from not the greatest, and really struggling.
Stop it.
So wow, I get it, I love it, can you do more? This actually saves, for the business folks in here, we had somebody processing the data on a routine basis. We would get it as Excel extracts. And she would spend about an hour a day, maybe an hour and a half, depending on the volume of traffic processing. We now use this with direct feeds, and she's free to work on other things. So we are saving a little bit of time here. But the ability to communicate this out throughout the organization quickly to those who need to see it, because we do care about who sees this information and that it goes to the right people, so there are some securities in place, is extraordinary. This is why we chose Tableau. This is a great case example. I'm not even going to walk you through this one. I will say that we care about when ads are delivered during the time of day. This one struggled. This one shows it right away. People get it. They can interpret the dashboards. And we hear that time and time again at our seminars here. Being able to understand what the communication is, what the information is being displayed to the user so they can analyze. Okay, so now I'm going to take a risk and show you the demonstration. Before I do the demonstration, real quick on the story behind what I'm about to show you. As I said, we monitor campaigns. We want to make sure that if we are effectively delivering units for our clients, starts in January, ends in June, 6 months, we're going to deliver 100,000 units of ad impressions, which is 100,000 a month. Okay, and we want to make sure that we are getting on a standard pace, because if we fall behind, we're in serious trouble. We got to figure out how to catch up, and we aren't monitoring one campaign. We are monitoring easily hundreds. So we have a team of client services managers that are designed to go in and understand where are my campaigns today versus where the end date. We call it pacing. Are you on the right run rate, if you will, for those in manufacturing? Okay, great. I told you originally that we used Excel. I am not lying. The report that is used is called the TPS report.
And yes, we are using the new cover sheets now.
Yes, we are using the new cover sheets.
I can get you a copy of the memo if you need it.
Our CSMs, our client services team, would go in, download this report, and then go through using the Excel filtering. Some were a little more advanced than others. I am not lying again when I say, unfortunately, some of them weren't advanced. You know what they would do? They would print them out, and then they would take a yellow highlighter and look for their name. But it would spend an hour a day trying to understand, what should I be working on right now? Where are my concerns? Tableau was built for this, because it's not maybe I'll work on this. It's go work on this. This is your to-do list. This is the actionable insights or the actionable decision making. So, with the magic, I hope, we created a campaign summary dashboard. So I'm going to talk you through real quick what's on the screen here. On the left side, we have days remaining versus projected shortfall. Days remaining. If this is a 6-month campaign, January to June, how many days are left at the bottom? Obviously, the closer you get to the y-axis, 0, the sooner the campaign is going to end. And in this case, the further off the mark you are in terms of getting the number of units delivered, we can monetize that. We know how much each unit is going to cost or what we've sold it at. We can then go, the higher you are, the worse off you are. Right away, this is updated daily. Every night, information gets refreshed. This is the daily morning of what should I be working on. If you are up here, that's not good. It immediately tells folks what is going on. What should you be working on this moment? I've disabled a few of the tools, and if you hover over on our live dashboard, if you hover over the icon, it will tell you what the customer is, what the campaign is, how far off the mark you are. We have enabled all that to protect the innocent and the not so innocent. We have hidden that information in this one. But here's the other thing. Other teams can look at it right away. The client services managers, we used initials, and we did some randomizing of the initials, but even sales teams. I have a sales force that can go in and say, okay, here's how my team is doing today. On the right side, is designed to give an overview by CSM of how they're doing on all of their campaigns. So using a standard run rate, if you're halfway through a campaign, if it's a 6-month campaign, you're 3 months in, you should be about 50% done. So we call that about on par, and we use a tolerance of plus or minus 20%. Now we have set it up there to, if someone wants to adjust the tolerance. If you're well ahead, you're orange. If you're well behind, you're green. But it allows people to understand the performance of what's going on. So I talked about Evan. And Lauren said, we really got to find a way to get this folks what to do today instead of using the highlighting method or downloading the Excel. So Evan and I went back and forth a little bit. It was not a long conversation. We both knew I knew what I needed. I said, can you create this? We started at 10 in the morning. 11 o'clock, he showed me something. I said, I like it. Make a couple tweaks. He made a couple more tweaks. I'm like, yep. I'm like, Laura, what do you think at noon? She's like, wow, cool. We got to go see Corey. Corey's the CEO. We're going to go see him at 2 o'clock. We're going to show him this. Cool. We walk in. We talk to Corey about some other dashboard efforts we're working on. We then show him this out of the blue. Again, I cannot repeat the words that Corey said to us, but it was bordering on, wow, oh my. Oh my. And then to make matters even better, what does he do? He opens his door and yells, Rob, who happens to be our Senior Vice President of Business Development, get in here. Rob comes running in, takes a look at this and says, oh my. So we talk about the iterative process. I have gone from an Excel spreadsheet to this in approximately 6 hours, and it went live that night. That is the beauty of Tableau for us. We now have actionable efforts for folks to take advantage of right now. We've seen everything in terms of how we run Tableau. The strategic reports, how's our campaigns doing, to what do I work on right now? And with that, you want to talk I think we talked about the lessons learned.
Yeah. I mean, I think the really great part about this is we were just having a meeting and we got yapping afterwards, and we created a dashboard that now all of my senior leadership uses to not only see what our business is doing, but to help them manage, right? It's not uncommon that we'll see the same CSM all with like these horrible campaigns. They're just in trouble and they need help. And so now instead of them each having their own individual process and trying to just, take care of it all themselves before anyone notices, our senior leadership, their manager, we can divide the work better, run the campaigns better, because of course if we don't deliver ads, we can't get paid. And everybody loves getting paid because money is a motivator.
Money is a motivator.
That was a callback? No, that was great. So anyway, we did this a few months ago at our San Francisco Tableau user group, and the question and answer part seemed to be the more interesting part to anybody. So we're just going to open that up right now. Feel free to ask anything. We can run back through other slides. But I think the takeaway is Tableau can be hard, particularly in an enterprise environment. You can go wrong. Everybody likes to, I know my SVP of engineering, he's like, Tableau, it's so easy. Anybody can do it. And I'm like, not exactly. I think taking advantage of these opportunities, but it can go wrong. But I think it is an incredibly robust tool, and it can go very right. And it can really, my job as a VP of data strategy isn't just to make sure we have pretty dashboards. It's that this data helps us run our business more effectively. And a simple visualization that was just kind of a end of a meeting leftover conversation that these guys went back and worked on, and now it's a huge piece of how we manage our business every day. That's kind of cool, I think. Yes?
Cheers to you. It's great to see marketing using data. I was curious why you decided to build the architecture in-house instead of buying a platform, a marketing data activation platform like Channelmix or Marketing Metrics. Why did you decide to build it?
That's a good question. So the question is, why did we choose to build our architecture in-house? One, I'm a Silicon Valley nerd. We can build anything better than anyone else. For us, just kidding. I'm actually not. The build versus buy is a huge debate, right? Do you build it yourself or do you buy someone else? For us, because data will eventually, and is already, super integral into how we can deliver ads. So my data science team, right, looking at who did click on the ads and who whatever. Data is such an integral piece of our actual business logic, our special sauce, if you will. That's when you build it yourself. When it's your business, your core business, you build it yourself. When it's, hey, we just got to keep track of like clients, you get Salesforce, right? Because, hey, somebody else can do that better than we can. But data is so much a part of how we actually deliver, how we do what we do. So that's why we built it ourselves. And AWS, I don't know, the cloud, gosh, even just 10 years ago, was like, oh, it's scary. But it's incredibly effective. It's easy to scale up and scale down as we need. Incredibly cost effective, particularly if you use reserved instance pricing. As well as for our development efforts, we use spot instance pricing. And it's just, and it means that we don't have to have an IT department to fight with. We're our own IT department. It's kind of great. Anybody else? Oh, here? And there's one back there. We'll get you. No, go ahead.
So when you were looking at fraud or ad validation, viewability, those types of things,
Yep.
how were you reconciling the aggregate measures that you were getting from companies like Lowe's or from Comscore?
Yep.
At a low level of aggregation, let's say like the package level from an ad server to your cost.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And how does that, how did that end up working? Because that's definitely something that
Yes.
is tricky in advertising.
I was going to say, so for those of you not in advertising, I'll give you a little background. So viewability. So I load a web page, and if I can see the whole ad, that counts as viewable. A lot of publishers make money for ads that are like 5 scrolls down here because they load, and we all get paid on the impression, which means the ad was rendered, not necessarily that anyone saw it. So in addition to fraud, where there's little bots out there pretending to be people, there's also just publisher designs where, hey, there's it's infinite scroll, and there's all these, and they actually get paid. So viewability is a big thing in advertising, which is, hey, with at least 50% of the ad in view for at least 1 second, like seriously, did they see it? Or did I just pay for, whatever? It's a random thing. And the question that he's asking is there are several vendors who measure this viewability. And they, of course, all have their own methodology. And they will all tell you they have the best methodology. Because we're an ad network, we work with tons of agencies and advertisers. They all have their preferred vendor who did their preferred sales presentation. And so we have to work with all of them. And they all have quite different data. So we actually have 4 viewability vendors, 5, 4. And for the same ad impression, they will all have different results. We actually don't try and reconcile that. What we do is we have our own preferred vendor based on both the cost and their ability to measure our high impact units. Our units are actually quite different than a standard display, but we usually just use whichever vendor the agency or the advertiser says is their preferred vendor, and that's the numbers that we work off of. A lot are Comscore, some remote, IAS does it. The third parties have their own. They don't even tell you who they use to measure viewability. So it's one of the things we do is to just ingest data from everybody, and we'll use your preferred. I'm going to go back here first, and then I'll come up here. Yep.
So the narrative that we heard today really starts with you looking at your needs, bringing in a consultant, listening to another one, hearing from others. But how did Undertone reach that point? What was the process that you as an organization to reach that point where you said we are ready to make this investment internally?
That's a great question. That's actually how I have a job. So we talked about Corey before. He started as the COO, and I was sitting around a table with a former colleague of both of ours, and she got the call. He's like, hey, I'm joining this new company. Know anybody who knows anything about data? And she's like, I do. That's weird. So Corey recognized immediately that what we were doing, Undertone, 3 years ago was a very sales-driven organization with a very tiny tech component. The ad industry has changed dramatically in the last 5, and particularly in the last couple. It's sort of surprising how little technology was used to deliver ads that you see on computers. It was all done by people. But it's changing over dramatically with programmatic. And he recognized, because he came from Rovi, Silicon Valley, a very tech-driven company, he's like, whoa, we're not doing that right. And so he literally hired me to say, you, super smart with the data, come in here and tell us what we're going to need to keep up with that. And it was quite clear that the back-end infrastructure that we had was in no way going to keep up with the demand, the speed, any of those things. And so it's exactly why I have a job of, we're going to have a problem. Please solve it. And I think it's really interesting. A lot of companies, you're seeing chief data officers now and all these kind of new titles, because we used to be the people that you just stuffed in the corner basement and gave, really expensive database licenses to, and maybe we gave you reports. And now we're like, everything we do needs data, which is why I think Tableau doubled their conference size in just 1 year, right? Everybody needs to look at this because this is how you need to make decisions today. There was here first, and then we'll go there.
Okay, for your visualizations and stuff, how do you measure do you put down the KPI that's on there in order to measure the performance? Is it part of the database, or is it part of the Tableau calculations?
That's a great question. Wherever she's asking sort of how do we measure the performance of our dashboards, and do we measure it Tableau side or database side? There are a lot of folks who give Tableau Desktop to users and let them do whatever they want on their database. And if you know databases really well, like a Union All, real bad. But several joins and all that performance. We do not. Our users don't have any access to create anything that we haven't published to server for them that we've already sort of guaranteed is going to perform the way we expect it to. So that's part of mine and Brian's job, to understand from the users what do they want to look at. And then we work with the engineering organization to figure out how to aggregate the data on the back end so the dashboard will perform the way that they need. And so Redshift can do all the heavy lifting. Redshift, incredibly performant, make it do the work. Over here.
I should have two questions.
Sure.
First one is, do you use Tableau Dashboard as part of the product that directly client-facing, or just mostly?
We do not yet, but we will by the end of the year. We're going to start with our publishers. Today, they get little emailed files. We're like, hey, we could do that better. And it is one of the reasons we chose Tableau, because the server architecture, we can use it internally and externally the same way. And second question?
Do you guys deal with ad blockers? Because it seems like in the industry, nobody really has good data about what percentage of users that actually use ad blockers, from like 5% to 40%.
Yeah.
Do you guys look at the data?
So we can't tell. So our entire business is based on the web page comes up. There's a little HTTP string. It's called a request. It comes to us saying, okay, I'm here. I have this person. Do you have an ad that matches? With an ad blocker, that request never comes. So ad blocking is obviously a huge thing. It's good. You're going to laugh. I use an ad blocker, but I whitelist all my favorite sites because they need their advertising money to stay in business. They do. The only people who have made really the paywall work is so far Netflix, and it's only because it's $7 and we kind of love it. But no one else has had success, right? You go to the New York Times, or like I got to pay. No, I'm not going to pay. Now, you used to pay to have your paper delivered, and of course you get it, right? They have to produce the paper and deliver the paper. They have to get paid. The New York Times does have to pay its reporters, and they do that with online advertising. But the reason ad blockers are so popular is because we're really bad at advertising. The advertising industry is a fire hose. Like, how many people in here are going to buy a car in the next year? That's exactly one person. That's perfect. I did a great example. However, every single car dealership will pay to put 1,000 ads in front of all of you to reach her. So that's the problem, and I think that's the problem that data can solve, right? She's the only person I want to reach. I want to take all the money in the world to make sure she can make an informed decision. Now, a car is an interesting thing because you really do only buy one every 10 years, and it isn't just the advertising that you see the year that you bought it that makes you want to buy a car. This brand loyalty, brand affinity, all that kind of stuff. It does take years to build up. So whatever you drive at home, you didn't come to that decision all on your own. You were advertised to. Over here, and then we'll go there and there. Okay.
My question is around how do you manage the software need for the people who were clients of the reports that you were creating?
Mm-hmm.
Your reports were Excel-based.
Yes.
And everybody in the room has Excel.
Yes.
Or people that you email reports to.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say of the 100% people that were clients of your reporting, how many needs to have license? How many just provide PDF? How many just...
Yeah, so we use Tableau Server, so they all are logging in a web interface, and I think we talked a little, so he's asking, how do we manage that? We also bought core licenses from Tableau, which means I kind of have unlimited users. Not necessarily. I won't be able to scale that infinitely. At some point, we'll have to buy multiple cores. But with our level of concurrency today, we can handle everybody in our company off a server license. They get everything through a web interface. They have the ability to download if they want to. We don't. That's definitely not the main feature. We really don't want folks downloading data and making up their own story. We want them to find the story here, which is just a separate aside. I just learned about tooltips yesterday, and you can turn them into sentences, which is perfect for executives. I am so excited. We have a meeting already when we go back. But we handle all the licensing through server, and everybody access through the web interface. And that's kind of, they can download data if they need to, because there's always something custom that we haven't developed yet. But that makes it into his queue for our next product cycle.
So everybody needs that.
They do.
Yes.
Not desktop. So server is CPU based, and then it will support, it's technically unlimited users, but you can't have that many users on just a single core license, so you'll eventually have to scale the licenses. Desktop, we only use for our data science and engineering folks. We just have a handful of desktop licenses. One person produces pretty much all our reports, and the rest of us just use it kind of on the side. But we don't give that to our users at all, because they can go horribly wrong.
Yes.
There's back there, and then there's here, and then there's there. Yes?
You mentioned you get external data from 85 different partners.
We do.
What tools do you use, or how do you import that? Because we do it with it's all with the Dash.
It is horrible. What we're using now is Camel and Kafka. This was our old engineering VP. To be honest, I just had a great conversation with the product folks at AWS. If you don't know the AWS data pipeline, I believe we'll eventually migrate. That's actually what they're really they're like, hey, you have data someplace? We will go get that. And then we will help you put it into Redshift. We like it that you use Redshift. So their data pipelines are kind of amazing. And if we'd known better about them then, I think that's the choice we would have made. Now, not all third parties are created equal. Someone like, like a Google and like a DoubleClick, they have a robust API getting data from them. It's very reliable, fabulous documentation. We're great. Some of our other smaller vendors, they're like, we could maybe email you a file that might be the same every so often, kind of. So we work with each one just a little bit differently. But we take the pain so our users don't have to. And then there was there, and then there's there. Okay.
So you mentioned that you're working off a star schema. Ultimately, you're going to
Yes.
off of Redshift.
Yes.
By database queries rather than extracts. So
Yes.
what other issues do you run into? Like Cisco's talk was like, this is what we did to deal with the hundreds of extracts we do every day to drive all the Tableau.
Yeah. Again, that's just pure data extract. You just never want to extract data. You just don't. Like one place, then you just don't have to deal with everything that comes after. I think, I don't know Cisco. I don't know what their back-end infrastructure, concurrent users. I mean, if they're using old school enterprise database, I don't know if you know this, but enterprise software, we use the word enterprise. It's definitely going to be way too expensive. But something like a Redshift, I mean, it's what they're eating everybody for lunch right now. It's so performant and it's so cost efficient. It's harder for big legacy companies to change, but we just... seriously, I love Redshift. It's very exciting. We just haven't had any issues, so we don't do extracts. We just don't do any of that.
So do you guys leave it at the transactional level, or are you aggregating?
Oh, no, we aggregate. We have, so we store all of our log files in S3. We do all the processing with either custom MapReduce or Pig or Hive to create aggregates that sit in Redshift. But like my data science team, and we always can go back and get at any answer we ever want. But it makes no sense to load transactional data to a database. That's just plain silly. That will give you lots of performance problems, and then you'll be extracting, and that's weird. That's why they invented big data. And that was over here.
Two questions.
Yes.
So, in the first diagram you showed when that was your first day, you had Tableau embedded in the workflow?
Yes.
So is it embedded?
It's not really embedded. You can actually embed it in an iframe if you want to. But what we just do is we had them build links, so they're just in their regular tool, and it's like, I need a report on this, and they just press a button, and their already authenticated parameters are passed based on what they were already doing in the application, and the appropriate dashboard pops up in front of them, ready for them to do their next step. Yeah.
My second question is, based on what you said, you have different vendors, and Google's data is different than someone else, and you do all the cleaning. And,
Yes.
so able to compare apples to apples in everything you do? I mean, you have a salesperson that you are reporting on performance, and some people might be using Google only, and others might be using other
Yes.
vendors. So, like, do you have any QA in place? How do you
No.
make sure the data is
We just wing it, man. So QA. Seriously, just garbage in, garbage out. It's great. No problems. No, we spend a tremendous amount of time. So the ad industry has this term that makes me clench my hands in fists of rage. It's called discrepancy. What discrepancy really is so you may not know, this is getting super nerdy, but a little ad renders on your page. It's a lot of JavaScript, and it executes in serial. If you leave the page before something executed, so Google might be serving an ad on my behalf. Google might have got the message, but I didn't get the message. That should happen a teeny tiny percentage of times. Unfortunately, in the industry, discrepancy's gotten awfully, it covers a myriad of, oh yeah, HTTP messages get lost. I'm like, no, they don't. Like, every Facebook post I make gets there. They don't get lost. It's this whole thing. So discrepancy has become sort of the industry term to hide fraud, to hide viewability, to hide a lot of things, mistakes, because it's very manually done. It is. It's a little crazy. So a third party, and this is actually why we ingest all these third parties. 90% of our revenue, we get paid on someone else's numbers, not our own. So what Google says is the number that we get paid on. It could be totally different than what I think. So we spend a lot of energy tracking discrepancy, trying to manage discrepancy. That little pacing sheet, that's one of the things we're talking about. Like, hey, and it's usually a setup problem or a technical problem or something like that. But we spend an enormous amount of energy, both ahead of time and trying our best to match up every third party's slightly different set of everything to what we know, and then just constantly keeping track of that. But, hey, the general industry standard is plus or minus 10%. I'm a $100 million business. 10% is $10 million. I get just a little bit better. That's actually really meaningful. And I'm going to eliminate the word discrepancy from advertising before I die. Because 10% is not discrepancy. That's just epic fail mistake. So anyway, from a database perspective, that's just not okay. Back here. All AWS. The best. They're so great. And they've had their 80-second price decrease. They're a little war now with like Azure and everybody, IBM. It's so great. Same thing gets cheaper every year. That never happens. Anybody else? One here? Yes. Yep. That really depends on the day that you talk to them. It's a continual challenge. We do, so the ad industry works on an RFP, request for proposal, like, hey, we would like to do this. These are our high-level goals. This is how we're going to measure them. We're like, awesome, we'll sell you this. We set it all up, and like it's run for a week, and they're like, yeah, we decided to totally change our mind about what we're measuring. We forgot to tell you. Sorry, whoops. So I think it's one of the things with advertising going programmatic and why we've built this whole new back-end infrastructure. Today, people keep track of how all these are happening. People can't do that. It's getting too complicated when you look at fraud and viewability. And yes, CTR still matters, even though it's a terrible metric. And now I want to look at engagement. I want to look at time spent. I want to look at, and yes, can you optimize all of those so my campaign is the best at everything? Mm-hmm. It's getting hard. Computers can do that. People can't. Which is why this whole back-end infrastructure, so we can just sort of say these are the goals of the campaign, and it will go comb data across billions of impressions, these people, this campaign, this goal, this whatever, and make the decision about what's going to be the best, not just for that one campaign, but as our network as a whole. I do think folks are everybody agrees that CTR is bad, but we still use it. We're trying really hard. Our proprietary units, we look at engagement and interactions because they are sort of little microsites. And we do get a ton of traction there. People really get that. Like, sure, like they click, but they spent, an average of a minute engaging with your brand. That's meaningful. I think it's hard. Digital advertising really hasn't been branding. It's always been direct response. but like one of our largest clients is a regional furniture store, and they were like, I don't understand. Almost nobody clicks on an ad and immediately buys a couch. That's so weird. And I was like, first of all, who buys a couch online anyway? And I was like, yeah, no. But they might have seen the couch and taken a look at your website, and then they might go to the store and then sit on it and then buy it online, or maybe buy it in the store. I was like, the path to purchase is a lot more complicated these days with social networks, smartphones, like digital out of home, which is all the crazy billboards and the watches and the things. So I think folks really are trying to understand, and it's the holy grail, I think, of advertising, of can I really follow you along? Did you see a billboard? Did you read a newspaper? Did you see a magazine? Did you see it on your phone? Did your friend talk about it? Like all of the different ways you might have gotten this information, and then how did you actually convert to that purchase? We'd love to know that. We're working on it. It's kind of hard. I think, the phone's gonna get a little creepier before it gets better, but I think it's like the ad blocking, or even the cookie blocking. Everybody's like, well, I don't want anyone tracking me. Well, if they don't, all you're going to get is irrelevant, cheap advertising, right? It's going to be worse. I would love, and somebody can go start a company and I'll come help you, for actually us to be in charge, for them to come to us and I can tell them what I like, what I don't like, what I'm interested in. I get paid instead of some Experian or BlueKai, or who's now Oracle, instead of them collecting this data surreptitiously and trying to weirdly model it, and because I live next door to you, we're probably the same and all. What if I could actually be in control of my data, and I could control what I'm willing to spend and not spend, and then the advertisers would have all they wanted. All of us weird folks in the middle who make all this money on arbitrage would be gone. We'd pay less for everything, and then we'd get the right experience. It's going to happen. Watch. Oh, here we go.